Hello, I hope you're ready for some hints, tips, and tricks. As far as this week's homework goes for week 7, it's time for homework advice. Okay, for this homework advice, let's start with the end. So when you're all done, this is what the program should look like. You'll have a drop down of the different mailboxes, the Allen, Donahoe, Lay, and Williams mailboxes, and the one mail mailbox. You'll select one, and then when you hit the button, it will find all the email addresses within that mailbox in the from clause, and then display them on the screen, and then also write them to the file. So in this case, it would be Enron Donahoe emails.txt would be the file it would write them to. So that's what it looks like when it's all done. This is a pretty complicated program, although when all is said and done and you're finished, it will not be a lot of code. It might be 25 to 30 lines of code. So it's pretty short, but it requires a heavy dose of problem solving. So therefore, what I have done is I have suggested an approach that you take to solve this problem. And I encourage you to take this approach, and if you get stuck, just hand in how far you got, and in your reflection say, this is as far as I got with this approach. Okay? Don't try to do the whole thing and then have a whole bunch of code that doesn't work. That's not useful. Okay? What's useful is getting some code that works and then learning from that and then moving on. Okay? There's still a few of you that are, it's not all of you, it's just a few, but there's a few of you that hand in work and none of your code does anything. And it makes me feel like we're not following good homework advice. So again, when we think about this problem, there's a lot of moving parts in here, right? You gotta figure out which mailbox to use. You gotta find the emails within the mailbox. You gotta write them to a file. You gotta figure out if they're emails in the first place. Lots to worry about. So here's my problem simplification approach. First, let's solve a really simple problem where we take the file one mail inbox text and just get the single email address out of that one email on the from line. This is going to be very similar to 1.4 in the lab. Okay, so you're going to do something extremely close to what you did in 1.4 in the lab. So you might say with open, and then I'm just going to open directly the file. This is probably not a good strategy for the final program, but it works just fine for this, right, which is step 1. I'm going to actually rename these so that they're numbers because I'm going to refer to them a lot. This might be a long piece of advice, but hey, whatever it takes. That's my opinion. So problem simplification, we're first going to write code that does this. So let's open that file for reading as, F, and then let's just get it all. So for line in F, right? Then what we want to do is just print line. And then that's the entire email. Okay? Now in here you will see there is a from right here. This is the line we want to pay attention to. And this is the value we want to extract from that line we want to pay attention to. So the way you pay attention to certain lines is you use if, right? We go through each line and then say, are you the line I'm looking for? Are you the line I'm looking for? Are you the line I'm looking for? Yes. So what does it mean to look for the line? We're looking for this from in the beginning of the line. So if line starts with, now, I'm not doing anything in here that you don't know already. This was all done in the lab, so it's not like I'm giving away any homework at this point. So there you go. You get that one line in there. Just to show you that it works, if I switch this to like the Allen emails, you'll see that there's a bunch of them. Okay? But let's go back to what we had before, which is the one mail. Okay? Extract the single. We haven't extracted the single email yet. I want to just get this. But again, we already did this. This was in 1.4. I encourage you to use what you did in 1.4. However, write it. Again, write it. You need the practice. Get the practice. So it's going to be, I think it was something like email equals line, replace this from with an empty string. And then after that, we want to strip it. Right? So stripping removes the extra white space. This replaces the from part. And then together, that gives us what we want, just the email. Good. So that's step one. Everybody should be able to get step one done pretty easily. Now, how do you turn this into an IPython interact? We'll deal with that later, right? But basically, you are going to change this to be a variable. And then based on the drop-down you select, it's going to open that file. It's not going to always open the same file. It's going to open a file based on the drop-down value. Okay, that's the strategy. So we aren't even at the point where we can write an algorithm yet because we haven't reached like the entire program, but we do have an algorithm already kind of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually write what we have as an algorithm so far. Right? So I'm going to come down here. And what are we doing up here? I know it doesn't fit all on the screen. I'm going to try my darndest to make it fit. Okay? Maybe that'll work. Okay? And I'm going to do this. I'm going to say open the selected file. Then we are going to, for each line in the file, if line starts with from, extract email from line, and for now we're printing the email. Okay, that's what we're doing. That's our algorithm. Now, let's look at step 2. Step 2 says rewrite your program to use another inbox file, right? To make sure it will print multiple emails. So that's pretty easy. This same code should work with other emails, right? So let's do the Allen inbox. And it does. See, there's some, this is not an email, and that's not an email. How do we deal with that? We'll baby steps, man, baby steps. This is what I'm talking about. Get code that works before you write more code. You want to have confidence that the code you have is right. So I am going to extract this to a variable. I'm going to call this mailbox. And then up here, I'm going to say mailbox. And then I'm going to make that equal to, that one. All right. So eventually, when I get into interact, this mailbox is going to be the dropdown. Okay, that's going to be the part that does the dropdown. But we don't have to worry about that yet. That's the last step. I want to see everybody have a working program before you even think of bringing interact into the party. You should have something that works, that does the job without it. Okay. Now it says rewrite your program to emit any emails with the domain Enron. So what does that mean? That means like this person down here, Heather Dunton. I don't want to send emails to people from my own company. Remember, the goal of this was to collect all of the contacts that are outside the company so that you can send them like an email Christmas card or some kind of invite or whatever. Bottom line here is we don't want to send emails to people within our own organization. So what can I use? Once I know that it's the email line, and once I get what I think is the email, how do I know to exclude, like this one, Louise Kitchen? Well, it's because it ends with Enron, right? So I'm not going to write that code for you. You can figure it out, but I am going to write the algorithm, okay? So down here in my algorithm, right, extract the line, extract the email from the line. If email ends with Enron, we're not going to print it, right? So I guess I should say if the email does not end with Enron, then we're going to print the email. So there's an extra decision in there, okay? Let's think this through a bit more. All right. Then it says, oh, one thing we forgot is how do we know it's a legitimate email? Like this is not an email, even though it was on the email line. If you look at the underlying file, you can see what's happening here. Which one was that? One mail. Oh, this wasn't one mail. This was Alan, right? Alan has that in there. Okay. Alan. And I go to from. And one of these froms doesn't have an email in it. That's what's going on here. I can look around for it, but I'm kind of like, why, right? But that's what's happening is if you look, just one of them doesn't have it. So here's some code that you can use. I promised I would give you this code. Here's some code you could use that will detect emails. Okay, and this is going to be a function. So I'm going to open up another cell, and I'm going to write this function. And then I'm going to put it in my main program. Remember, when you write a main program, you should have your imports up here. Then you should have your user-defined functions. Then comes your main function, or interact. So this right down here is my main code, right? And I'm going to make a user-defined function and an import. So this is how I find emails. I do import RE, which is what's called a regular expression. And then the regular expression I want to evaluate is kind of ugly, but I will paste it in here and then talk about it, because you probably don't want to watch me type it. Okay. Now I'm going to set a value of text to mafudge at seredu, and let's see what it says. It says true. So that's an email. And then I'm going to do mafudge at seredu, and that says false, because that's not an email. Or how about this? mafudge at seredu with no dot. False, not an email, right? So it's pretty good at detecting emails. How does it work? So regular expression search says to go through this text and find this pattern. If you find the pattern, you're going to return back a value. If you don't find the pattern, you won't return back a value. That's why I'm checking for what's called none. None means it has no value. Okay. So I can say is not none, or I can say not equal to none. They do the same thing. Okay. And all I'm saying here is it's a Boolean expression that says, when you search, do you get back a value? If you do not get back a value, then I want true, which means if it comes back with none, then it wasn't found, right? So I want that to not none is false. For example, if I do mafudge at seer, and that says false, right? Because this does not return a value. This would be none. I guess I could show you that, right? See, it just doesn't give me anything, right? But if I go and do mafudge at seer.edu, I get back a value. See, then I get back a value, what's called a match object. So what you're doing is you're checking to see if you get a match object back. And you're saying, if I do not get a match object, then obviously it didn't match. Okay? Now, knowing that, what does this say? Well, this says, basically this says begin, this says end, and then the brackets represent something that can be said. In this case, I'm looking for a period, or a hyphen, or any word. So I can start this with a hyphen if I want, and it still is an email address. See that? True. Still an email address. I can start it with a period, and it would still be considered an email address. I can't start it with an exclamation mark, though. See, it says false, because it says you must begin with either a period. This backslash is to say what's coming next is a period. What's coming next is any word. And then dash is just dash. And then this plus means they can repeat as many times as I want. So maybe I can do, how about this? I could do i.am.mike. That's a valid email address, because I can repeat that as many times as I want. That's what the plus means. So then down here, this says, then you expect to see an at. Then I will include a word or a minus. A word or a minus. But there has to be a period at the end. See that? I have to have a period at the end. And then I can repeat that as many times as I want. So I can say, I am Mike at ischool.datascience.sear.edu. See that? I have as many dots as I want after that. And then it says the last dot must be between 2 and 4 characters. So I can do, CO, or I can do mild, right? But I can't do dot information. That's not going to be a valid email address. So that's false. Okay? That's just a wonderful tangent if you wanted to know how a regular expression works. It's really cool pattern matching. And I have this tab up here, pythex.org, if you want to learn about regular expressions in Python and learn to create them and learn to match things. And it will show you how to match stuff. So that's pretty useful, and I'll make sure that gets included in here. So this is kind of how I figured it out, is I used pythex.org. Great for learning regular expressions. I thought long and hard about whether I should teach regular expressions in the class, and I decided no. I decided that's something that after you get good at regular Python, the important things of Python, you can go ahead and learn that stuff on your own. I didn't want to do that, and that's why I'm giving you this particular code. So let's turn it into a function now. It's going to input the text, and it's going to output true or false. So it's going to look like this. Def is email. And then we're going to pass in the text. And then we're going to return, let's search for that. And if that returns an object, then it's obviously an email. And then let's try it one more time down here. Is email. And then let's try, ma_fudge at sear.edu. False. And let's take care of that. True. Now, we could argue maybe that domain doesn't exist, but that's not what it's that's not what it's checking. It's checking to see if things like this, that's not an email, but that is. Right? So figuring out which one's an email, which one isn't. What do you do in this case, right? Well, in this case, you're going to say that's not an email because, it has a bunch of other stuff in here, and I only want this. What about this one? Email or not? This as is not an email, so we'll get excluded. Okay, so we need this code in our main code. So now, this is something that a few of you are still struggling with. This goes under imports, right? And also under here, you're going to have your other imports like from, IPython, IPyWidgets, import, interact manual. And from I think it's IPython like this. .display, import display HTML. We do this all the time. And then I'm going to define my function. I do all my imports at the top, and then I define my function here. Right? And so that now this function is available to me to use in this code. So I can extract the email, and then I can say, if is email, then I want to print the email. So I only want to print the email when it's actually an email. Right? I extract it out, and I check to make sure it's an email. So we're going to lose this. We're going to lose this. We're going to lose this. Let's see if that happens. Pay close attention to the output. Okay, we lost them, right? We kept ones like this and this, but we lost other ones. Okay, so now each of these are valid emails. You can actually try to send an email to these in an email client. It won't complain about the email. Okay, so that really takes us through step 3. Now, you got to write the code for step 3, right? You have to modify this so that not only does it check for it being an email, but it also checks to make sure that it doesn't end in enron.com, because I don't want to email these people. They're in my company. So you have to figure that out still. Okay. Then that takes us down to step 4. Don't only print them, but now write them to a file. So I'm going to, again, discuss the algorithm with you, but not the code, right? So where we print these emails, we want to not only print them here, but also write them to another, to the file as well. So under here, we want to write to file. But we have to figure out which file, right? And we have to open the file. So opening the file and which file has to occur much sooner than all of this, right? Because as you go through line by line, you're saying, are you an email? No. Are you an email? Yes. Are you a valid email? Yes. Okay, then print you and write you. Are you an email? No. Are you an email? No. Are you an email? Yes. So that print and that write to file, that file has to be open before that. Okay, so let's go back down and look at the algorithm, right? So we're going to open the open file. I don't know what happened here. Open file mailbox for reading. Okay. And we're also going to open file emails for writing. And then not only are we going to print the email, right? We are also going to write email to file. Okay. So you're going to have one file. It's going to have one handle, A, and another file B. So you're going to write email to file B in this case. Okay. You have to have your file handles here. One thing I didn't fix about this algorithm is if email does not end with endron and is valid email, right? Which is this function up here. Now you might want to write a function that checks to see if it ends with enron. You could do that. You could say def, is enron text, right? And you can write your own function that does that. I would be impressed if you did that. That's cool, but I didn't ask you to do that. You don't have to do that. Okay. All right, so we're getting a lot closer to the solution then. So you at this point, as I'm thinking it through, at this point you will be able to sort of open both files, loop over the file you read. I guess I can call this R and W. It doesn't matter. File R. You're going to loop over each line in file R, and then you're just going to check for the emails, and then when you find it, you're going to print it to the screen and write it to file W, which is the writing file. Okay. What I want to do is when the program finishes running, I should be able to go back over here, and there will be an Enron Allen emails text, right? As it says right up here. If you have Enron Allen inbox, it would be Enron Allen emails. So one more thing you have to figure out is how to make this file name, right? So if you think about it, it's pretty easy, right? You're going to replace inbox with emails. That's basically it, right? If I just take a little snippet down here, and I'm going to take this, and if I just go, hey, your file name is that. I guess if I'm going to be consistent, I'm going to call this mailbox, right? Mailbox. And then I'm going to say email file is going to be the mailbox file, but replace the word inbox with emails. I'll print them both to show you. Right? So this is what you start with, Enron Allen inbox, and this is what you end with, Enron Allen emails. Right? You read from this file, and you write to this file. Every time you select and click a button, you want to rewrite the file. Okay? It's not perfect, but it's good enough. Okay? All right, so that just leaves you with step 5, IPy widget dropdown, where you can select a mailbox, right? So here is what you're going to do for this. Basically, you're going to have a list, just like you did in the previous homework. You'll have a list, of mailboxes. And the mailboxes are going to have names like this, right? But I'm going to just be lazy and, do like A, B, C, right? But you wouldn't do A, B, and C. You're going to do these. You're going to do Allen, Enron Donahill, Enron Lay inbox, Enron Williams inbox, Enron One Mail inbox, just like you saw in my demo. Okay? In the beginning of the video. Then you're going to do an interact with this, right? So you're going to say interact manual mailboxes. I'm going to call it, I don't know, mailboxes. Remember, you're picking one from a list, right? So that's pretty good. And then def, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And then this has to match, right? Always needs a function definition. And then I'm just going to pass in here. I'm not going to do anything because you have to figure that out, right? But then you get this drop down. I had ABB, right? But you don't want them to say A, B, and C. You want them instead to say these mailbox names. Okay? So that's a huge hint for this week's homework. Hopefully you're able to figure it out and get this baby rolling. One thing I don't want you to forget is do not forget to complete your problem analysis. I gave you most of the algorithm that you're going to need to do this. It's just a matter of figuring it all out. And if you don't get the solution working, right? If you don't get the solution working, stop at one point, right? Like maybe I got to step 4 and I didn't get step 5 working. Do that, and then in your reflection, talk about it. Okay, that's what we want to see. We don't want to see code where none of it works. That's not helpful to you. It's not helpful to us, right? But when you're all done, it's going to work like this. You're going to see all these in the drop down. You're going to pick one. It's going to write to Enron Allen emails text. And what is it going to write to Enron Allen emails text? All the emails that I see on the screen. Those are going to get it written to that file. So I should be able to go over here, find Enron Allen emails.txt, open it up, and just see emails in the file. Okay, that's it. And that's it for this week's homework advice. Hopefully you found it useful. Thank you. Bye now.